going to read to you chapter 18. I've got something very important to tell you. Winston's eyes pinged open and he looked around to find Lytton standing beside him, holding a hoof up to his snout, telling him to keep quiet. Winston nodded and tapped Hilda, who was beside him, snoring. She woke with a start. Lytton had something to tell us, he whispered in his tiniest voice. Hilda's eyes widened. Follow me, said Lytton mysteriously, and he led them away from the sleeping herd towards the little patch of woodland where Winston had crash-landed earlier. Winston's curiosity was such that he thought his whiskers would tie themselves in a knot. What is it, Lytton? He squeaked. It's a surprise, the reindeer whispered. Hilda and Winston looked at each other. What on earth was going on? Lytton hustled them under the branches and into the small clearing. Then he suddenly stopped, looking shy and timid. Well, go on then, said Hilda in her gentle but bossy way. What's this very important surprise? Lytton looked around excitedly and then said, I think I know how you can get to the North Pole. Winston's whiskers were trembling with anticipation now. How? He said. Lytton closed his eyes. For a moment or two, nothing happened. Hilda and Winston glanced at each other again, both wondering if Lytton had gone a bit bonkers. But then something did happen. Something magical and extraordinary. Every hair on Lytton's body started to shimmer and glisten. He glittered from his tiny antlers to his stubby tail as if he'd been dipped in starlight. Suddenly his nose began to glow. It turned from dark brown to yellow to orange to pink to bright holly berry red, and then his hooves lifted gently from the ground. Lytton opened his eyes. Am I doing it? He cried. He looked down. I'm doing it. I'm flying. And he was. It was a very wobbly sort of flying, but he really was drifting through the chilly winter air. Leading with his glowing red nose, he did a slow loop around the clearing before landing with a tumble back on the ground. You can fly? Squeaked Winston, astounded. Lytton nodded. It started a few days ago. I sneezed and I noticed my nose starting to glow. Then before I knew it, I was floating with all my hooves off the ground. It only happened for a split second, but I just knew I was flying. That's what I was doing earlier when you found me. I'd sneaked in here to make sure I hadn't been dreaming. But why haven't you told your family? Asked Hilda, wide-eyed. I'm sure they'd be very excited. Lytton looked sheepish. I will tell them, he said. But you see, it's usually only girl reindeer who have the ability to fly, and it doesn't happen until they're grown up. I must be a bit odd, he finished, looking a bit glum. Winston smiled at his friend. No, not odd, he insisted. Special. Lytton gave Winston a small smile back, then looked down at his hooves again. And everyone is always fussing over me, he continued. They think because I'm tiny I can't do things. But I can be brave, and I can take you to the North Pole. I know I can. But you've only just learned to do it, said Hilda. It's a long way to go to the North Pole on your own, and in all this snow. It might be very dangerous indeed. Winston, what do you think? Winston was quiet as he thought about it. Lytton was certainly nowhere near as good as flying as Hilda. At the same time, Winston knew all about being tiny and how others could underestimate you just because of how you looked on the outside. He studied Lytton and saw the same sparkle of fierce determination that he himself felt when he thought about his very curious mystery. Let's do it, he said, and Lytton did an excited little hop around in a circle. Hilda still looked worried but could see how important it all was to Winston. She gave him a hug with her good wing and helped him climb up onto Lytton's still glittering back. I'll tell your family in the morning, Hilda said to Lytton. Just the pair of you, be jolly careful, all right? Winston and Lytton nodded solemnly and listened carefully as Hilda told them she thought they would need a good run-up for their flight. She led them out to the other side of the little woodland so they were still hidden from the herd. In front of them, for as far as they could see, were the seemingly endless empty snow-covered plains. Ready? Said Lytton. Winston nestled down deeper into his friend's fur and gripped on as tightly as he could with his paws. Faster and faster he galloped, a fine white powdery trail of snow kicking up behind him. The moonlight shone as his fur glittered wildly, the sparkles dancing and fizzing with magic. His nose glowed again, berry red and as bright and as shiny as a lantern. Here we go, he cried, and Winston gripped on even tighter. Then with a leap, Lytton flung himself into the air, and within moments he and Winston were climbing steeply through the star-spangled sky.